There is a kind of silence that is not empty. It is full. It is a presence in the room, heavy as a piece of furniture you keep bumping into in the dark. It is the silence of a phone that does not ring, a message that does not arrive. And your body, before your mind even admits it, has learned to wait for it. Your shoulders are tensed for it. Your breath is held for it. Every phantom vibration in your pocket, every notification for something else, is a small, sharp shock of disappointment. You tell yourself you are not waiting. You are busy. You are living your life. But the silence has become a background hum to everything you do. It is there when you are laughing with friends, a quiet question mark at the end of the sentence. It is there when you are trying to focus on work, a magnetic pull drawing your attention back to the blank screen. And at night, in the quiet of your own home, it is no longer a hum. It becomes a roar. You replay conversations, searching for clues. You dissect his last words, his tone, the emoji he used or didn't use. You become a detective of absence, an archaeologist of what is not there. And the more you search, the louder his silence becomes. It is no longer just an absence of words. It has become a statement. It speaks of disinterest, of rejection, of him moving on with someone else. Each imagined scenario is a turn of the knife. The paradox is that his distance, his lack of action, has become the most powerful action in your shared story. It occupies more of your mental and emotional space than his presence ever did. You are in a one-sided conversation with an echo, and it is exhausting. You feel yourself shrinking, your energy draining into this black hole of uncertainty. You promised yourself you would stop chasing, that you would reclaim your dignity, and you have. You are not calling, you are not texting, but the inner chase, the frantic race of your own mind, has not stopped. And here is the most painful part. You sense, on some deep, intuitive level, that this silence is not as simple as disinterest. It feels charged. It feels like there is something underneath it: fear, pride, confusion. And this intuition is what keeps you hooked. The possibility that his silence is not an ending, but a difficult, unspoken chapter. This is why his distance becomes louder than any words he could ever say. Because it speaks not only of him, but to a very deep, very old part of you. But this is only the surface. This is the story the conscious mind tells itself to make sense of the pain. The deeper truth is far more uncomfortable, and yet it is the only path to freedom. The reason his silence is so deafening has less to do with the volume of his feelings and more to do with what his silence is reflecting back at you. It has become a screen, a vast, empty canvas, and you, without realizing it, have been painting your own deepest fears and hopes onto it. This is where the work of Carl Jung becomes not an academic theory, but a lifeline. He understood that the most intense emotional reactions we have to others are rarely just about them. They are about what that person activates within our own unconscious. The silence is not an empty space, it is a mirror. And the agony you feel is not just the pain of his absence, but the pain of seeing a reflection you were not prepared to see. The question is not what he is feeling. The real question is, what part of yourself are you being forced to meet in his silence? To understand the power this silence holds over you, we must first talk about projection. In Jungian psychology, projection is an unconscious defense mechanism. It is when we take a part of ourselves, a feeling, a quality, a fear, a potential, that we cannot or will not acknowledge in ourselves, and we attribute it to another person. It is like having a movie projector in your mind. The film reel contains your own inner world, but you shine it onto the person in front of you, and then you react to the movie you are projecting, as if it were their reality. When a connection is intense, and a man becomes distant, his silence creates the perfect blank screen. It is neutral. It is simply an absence of data. But for your psyche, this void is intolerable. The unconscious rushes in to fill the gap. If you have a deep, unacknowledged fear of abandonment, you will project that fear onto his silence. You will see it not as silence, but as the act of abandonment itself, playing out in slow motion. His silence becomes definitive proof that you are being left, because that is the film running in your own projector. If you have a hidden hope for a profound, soul-deep love, you might project that onto his silence. His distance is not him being avoidant. It becomes a sign of the connection's overwhelming intensity. He must be pulling away because he is scared of how much he feels. His silence becomes a romantic testament to the depth of your bond. He is not just a man who isn't texting. He is a tortured soul, wrestling with emotions too powerful to express. Do you see the pattern? In both scenarios, his action, or lack thereof, is the same. The emotional meaning, the story that causes you so much pain or keeps you hooked on hope, is coming from you. This is not to blame you. This is a fundamental process of the human psyche. We do not see people as they are. We see them as we are. Or, more accurately, we see them through the lens of our own unmet needs, unhealed wounds, and unintegrated parts of ourselves. The loudness of his silence is a direct measure of the intensity of your projection. A man whose opinion doesn't matter to you can be silent for a year, and you would not even notice. His silence is quiet because you are not projecting anything onto him. But this man, the one whose silence is a roar, has become the keeper of a vital piece of your own soul. You have unconsciously handed him the key to your self-worth, your sense of being lovable, your hope for the future. You have projected your own inner treasure onto him, and now his silence feels like he has locked it away in a vault, and you are left outside, begging for him to open it. The return to yourself begins with the terrifying, liberating act of withdrawing that projection. It begins with the conscious choice to stop asking, "What does his silence mean about him?" and to start asking, "What does my reaction to his silence mean about me? What part of me is so activated by this? What old story is this silence tapping into?" This is the moment you stop staring at the movie on the screen and turn around to look at the projector. And when you do, when you turn the mirror around, you will likely find an old wound. For many women, this is the activation of what Jungian-oriented psychology might call an abandonment complex. A complex is not just a memory. It is a supercharged cluster of emotions, thoughts, and memories in the unconscious, tied to an archetypal core. The abandonment complex doesn't have to come from a dramatic childhood event. It can be formed from subtle experiences: a parent who was emotionally unavailable, the feeling of not being seen or prioritized, a first love that ended abruptly. This complex lies dormant until a situation in the present rhymes with the original emotional wound. His sudden distance, the shift from warmth to coldness, doesn't just hurt in the present. It sends an electric shock down into the unconscious and wakes up that sleeping giant, the complex. Suddenly, you are not just a grown woman feeling disappointed by a man. You are also the little girl who felt invisible, the teenager who felt rejected. All of that old, unprocessed pain floods into the present moment and magnifies the current hurt 100-fold. His silence becomes so loud because it is being amplified by the echo of every time you have ever felt left behind, unseen, or not good enough. You are not just reacting to him. You are reacting to a lifetime of accumulated evidence that your unconscious has been gathering to prove a core belief. Eventually, everyone leaves. Or, "I am not valuable enough to make someone stay." The ego, your conscious sense of self, hates this. It wants to believe it is strong and in control. So, it resists looking at the complex. It is far less painful for the ego to obsess about him, his fears, his issues, his potential return, than to face the deep, foundational wound within yourself. Analyzing him becomes a sophisticated defense mechanism to avoid your own pain. It keeps your focus outward, on the screen, rather than inward, on the source of the film. This is why you can feel like you are going crazy. Part of you knows, logically, that you should move on. But another, much more powerful part of you is caught in this ancient emotional loop. This is not a failure of your willpower. It is the magnetic pull of an activated complex. Freedom does not come from fighting it, but from understanding it, from turning to that younger part of you that was wounded and saying, "I see you. This feeling is familiar. But this time, I will not abandon you by obsessing over him. This time, I will stay with you." But there is another layer to this, a part that most people find even more difficult to face. This is where we must talk about the shadow. The shadow, in Jung's terms, is the dark side of our personality. It is the repository of everything we have repressed or rejected about ourselves because it was deemed unacceptable by our family, our culture, or ourselves. It contains our negative traits, like anger, jealousy, selfishness, and neediness. But it also contains powerful, positive potentials: raw ambition, untamed creativity, righteous anger, and profound autonomy. For many women, especially those socialized to be good, kind, and accommodating, the shadow holds the parts of them that are demanding, that put their own needs first, that are capable of saying no without guilt. The persona, the polite social mask you wear, is that of the understanding, patient, low-maintenance woman. She doesn't chase, she is cool, she is not needy. But what happens to all that need? The need to be chosen, to be desired, to be pursued. It doesn't disappear, it gets pushed down into the shadow, and from there it seeks expression in unconscious ways. You might not be chasing him with your phone, but your shadow is chasing him in your mind. It is the part of you that is secretly thrilled by the drama of his distance, because it creates a scenario where you might finally be pursued. His withdrawal activates a secret shadow hope that he will have to come back, that he will have to fight for you, thus validating the very needs your persona pretends not to have. This is a deeply uncomfortable truth. Part of you might be unconsciously co-creating this dynamic, because it is the only way your repressed needs can get any attention. The pain is real, but the drama is also a source of energy. It makes you feel alive, connected, part of an epic story of love and loss. It is more compelling than the quiet, steady work of meeting your own needs. His silence, then, becomes loud, because it feeds this hidden part of you. It keeps the story going. If he were to text you a simple, "Hey, how are you?" the drama would collapse. It would become ordinary. But his powerful, mysterious silence allows your shadow to project a grand narrative onto it. He is not just a man, he is the other half of a fated connection, and this is just the necessary trial you must endure. Seeing this shadow element is not about shaming yourself, it is about reclaiming your own power. When you can admit, a part of me is energized by this chase, because I have not allowed myself to acknowledge my own need for validation, the dynamic loses its charge. You bring the shadow into the light. You can then look at your neediness, not as something shameful to be repressed, but as a simple human need, like hunger. And you can begin to ask, how can I meet this need myself? How can I validate myself? How can I choose myself so profoundly that I no longer need someone's silence to feel like the heroine of my own life? Now, let's turn the mirror for a moment, not to get lost in him, but to understand the full dynamic. What might be happening on his side? Often, a man's withdrawal is not a sign of indifference, but a sign of his own confrontation with his unconscious. For a man, this often involves what Jung called the anima. The anima is the inner feminine image within a man's psyche. It is his connection to soul, to feeling, to relationship, to the unconscious. When a man has a fragile or undeveloped connection to his own anima, a real woman who embodies those qualities, deep feeling, genuine intimacy, soulful connection, can be terrifying. She represents a depth he has not yet integrated in himself. He is drawn to her light, her warmth, her emotional depth, but when he gets too close, it activates his own inner emptiness, his own fear of being engulfed by feelings he cannot control. His ego, his conscious identity built around strength, logic, and independence, panics. It sees this wave of emotion as a threat to its control. So, it builds a wall, it creates distance, it goes silent. This silence is not necessarily a weapon against you. It is a defense mechanism against his own inner world, which you have inadvertently awakened. He is pulling away from you, yes, but on a deeper level, he is pulling away from the part of himself that you reflect back to him. He is running from his own anima. His fear of loss might be very real. He may fear losing you, but he may also fear losing himself, his carefully constructed identity, to the powerful current of connection you represent. His silence becomes a desperate attempt to regain his footing, to retreat to the safe ground of his own rational mind, away from the messy, unpredictable world of the heart. His pride, his ego, will not allow him to admit this. He will not text you, "I'm overwhelmed by how much I feel and it's scaring me." He will simply go silent, and he will wait for the intense feeling to pass, hoping he can return later when things are less charged, when his ego feels back in control. He may be thinking of you constantly. He may be regretting his silence, but his fear of vulnerability is greater than his desire for connection in that moment. Understanding this is not an excuse for his behavior, nor is it a guarantee that he will return. It is a tool for your own liberation. when you see his silence not as a personal rejection of you, but as a possible symptom of his own inner struggle, it depersonalizes the pain. It is no longer a verdict on your worth. It is simply a reflection of his own limitations, his own journey of integration. You can have compassion for his struggle without making it your responsibility to fix or wait for. This is the crucial turning point. You realize you cannot control his journey. You cannot force him to integrate his anima or overcome his fear of intimacy. You cannot make him break his silence. Any attempt to do so, a carefully worded check-in text, a chance encounter, is just another form of chasing. It is you trying to manage his inner world, and it will only push him further away and drain you of your own life force. The only person's inner world you can manage is your own. So the dynamic shifts. It is no longer about you waiting for him to break his silence. It is about you breaking your own, the inner silence. The silence where you have stopped listening to yourself. The silence where you have abandoned your own needs, your own peace, your own life, to stand guard in the echo chamber of his absence. Breaking your silence means turning up the volume of your own inner voice. What does she need right now? Not in a month if he comes back, but right now. Does she need a walk in nature? A conversation with a friend that is not about him? Does she need to dance, to paint, to write, to create something that is purely for her? Does she need to feel the satisfaction of completing a project, of solving a problem at work, of feeling competent and grounded in her own reality? Each time you choose to meet your own need, instead of analyzing his silence, you take back a piece of your projected soul. You are literally reclaiming your energy. Imagine your psychic energy as a stream of light that has been flowing from you to him. Now, you consciously bend that stream of light back towards yourself. You reinvest it in your own growth, your own joy, your own peace. This is not a tactic. This is the path of individuation, the Jungian term for becoming a whole, indivisible individual. It is the process of integrating the conscious and unconscious parts of yourself, of withdrawing your projections from the world and finding your center within. At first, this will feel strange. Your nervous system is habituated to the adrenaline of the chase, the dopamine hits of hope, and the cortisol crashes of disappointment. Choosing the quiet, steady path of self-care can feel boring by comparison. You will be tempted to check his social media, to ask mutual friends about him. This is the addiction of the activated complex. You must treat it as such. When the urge arises, recognize it, but do not act on it. Instead, turn your attention inward. What is the feeling underneath the urge? Loneliness? Boredom? Fear? And how can you tend to that feeling directly, right now, without using him as a distraction? Slowly, something miraculous begins to happen. As you stop pouring your energy into the void of his silence, the roar begins to quiet down. It is not that you have forgotten him, or that you no longer care. It is that his silence no longer holds power over you. It is no longer the central organizing principle of your emotional life. It becomes what it actually is, just silence, an absence of sound. It no longer feels like a personal attack or a grand romantic gesture. It is just a fact, and one that has less and less to do with you. You have taken the mirror back. You are no longer staring at his reflection, trying to decipher his thoughts. You are looking at your own, and you are beginning to like what you see. You see a woman who can soothe her own anxieties, a woman who can generate her own happiness, a woman whose self-worth is not contingent on being messaged, pursued, or chosen. Her worth is an intrinsic state of being. If this journey of turning inward has named something you have felt but never been able to say out loud, perhaps you can write a single sentence for yourself, a private note of recognition for the shift you are undertaking. And now, a strange thing may happen. As you truly, deeply return to yourself, not as a strategy, but as a genuine homecoming, he may feel the shift. On an energetic, unconscious level, the dynamic has changed. The pressure is off. You are no longer projecting neediness, expectation, or a demand onto him. Your energy is no longer hooked into his. You have become energetically sovereign. This is often the point when a man like this feels safe enough to reach out. He feels the absence of your projection as a kind of freedom. He can approach you now without feeling like he is going to be engulfed. He might send that message you once waited for with bated breath. But here is the final, most beautiful part of this transformation. By the time he does, it will not land in the same way. You will not feel that frantic, desperate jolt of validation. You will feel a calm sense of curiosity. You will look at his name on your screen not as a savior who has finally ended your suffering, but as a person who has come to your door. And you are now the one who gets to decide whether to open it. If he does return, he will not be met by the anxious, waiting woman he left behind. He will be met by a woman who is grounded in her own center, a woman who knows her own worth, a woman who is no longer willing to participate in a dynamic of pursuit and withdrawal. She will not be angry or punishing. She will simply be different, whole. Her peace is no longer negotiable, and if he never returns, the miracle is that it no longer feels like a tragedy. It feels like a resolution. His silence was the catalyst, the harsh teacher that forced you to embark on the most important journey of all, the journey back to yourself. You did not get the man, but you got yourself back. And that is a love story that will last a lifetime. The silence that once roared has become a quiet space of possibility within you. It is the space where your own voice can finally be heard. It is the peace that comes from no longer waiting for a message, because you have finally become the person you were waiting for. My silence is not a strategy. It is my return to myself. But this return is not a single, declarative event. It is not a flag you plant on a conquered hill. The mind may grasp this truth in a flash of insight, but the body learns more slowly. The body holds the score. It remembers the years of holding its breath, the shoulders tensed in anticipation, the stomach clenched in a knot of anxiety. Your nervous system has been trained, perhaps since childhood, to exist in a state of high alert, scanning the horizon for signs of emotional abandonment. The drama of his silence, with its peaks of hope and valleys of despair, was a familiar, if painful, rhythm. It was a chaotic song your body knew how to dance to. The return to yourself, then, is also a somatic journey. It is the process of teaching your body, cell by cell, that it is safe to exhale. It is the conscious act of unclenching your jaw, of dropping your shoulders, of feeling the solid ground beneath your feet. When the familiar wave of anxiety rises, the urge to check his profile, the mental replay of your last conversation, the work is not to shame yourself for it, but to bring your awareness directly into your physical body. Where do you feel this anxiety? Is it a tightness in your chest? A hollowness in your stomach? A buzzing under your skin? Instead of letting that feeling propel you into obsessive thought, you simply stay with the physical sensation. You breathe into it. You don't try to make it go away. You offer it the quiet, steady presence that you once so desperately wished he would give you. In doing this, you are reparenting your own nervous system. You are moving it out of the sympathetic fight-or-flight state and into the parasympathetic state of rest and digest. You are showing your body, through direct experience, that you will not abandon it in its distress. You are its anchor now. This is the deeper layer of breaking your own silence. It is listening to the whispers of your body. It is choosing the quiet stability of self-regulation over the addictive chaos of external validation. At first, as we said, this can feel like boredom, but if you stay with it, that boredom transforms into a profound sense of peace. It is the peace of a ship that has finally come into a calm harbor after a long and violent storm. You will know the return is becoming your reality through small, concrete signs. It will not be a thunderclap. It will be a quiet dawn. You will be in the middle of a task or laughing with a friend, and you will suddenly realize, with a soft jolt of surprise, that you have not thought about him for 3 entire hours. The background hum of his silence has simply faded away, and you didn't even notice its departure. You will start making plans for your future, a trip in 6 months, a class you want to take next year, and you will notice the absence of the mental asterisk. There is no longer a silent, subconscious clause that reads, "Unless he comes back by then." Your future is becoming fully your own again. You might hear a song that used to make you cry, and you will feel not a stab of pain, but a gentle, distant nostalgia, like looking at a photograph of a person you used to be. You may even feel a sense of compassion for her, for how much she was hurting, but you will know, with certainty, that you are not her anymore. The most telling sign is a change in your inner landscape. The frantic detective work, the endless analysis of his motives, simply ceases to be interesting. Your mind has more compelling things to focus on: your work, your creativity, your own thoughts, your own dreams. The thought of him might drift in, but it no longer hijacks your consciousness. It floats by like a cloud in a vast sky, rather than being the storm that defines the entire weather system. You have taken back your sky. And then comes the final test. It almost always does. Just when you have found your footing, just when your peace has become non-negotiable, just when you have truly, deeply let go, your phone will light up. It will be his name. The message will be casual. Hey, been thinking about you. How have you been? In that moment, your body will remember. A ghost of the old adrenaline will surge through you. Your heart might give a familiar lurch. The old, wounded part of you, the shadow that secretly loved the drama, will sit up and pay attention. The hope you thought you had extinguished will flicker. This is the moment of truth. This is the final exam of your individuation. The old you would have seen this message as a triumph, a validation, proof that her waiting was not in vain. She would have replied too quickly, with a breathless mix of feigned coolness and palpable relief. She would have immediately cleared her schedule, her mind, her heart, to make space for his return. But the woman you have become does not do this. She sees the message. She takes a breath, a full, deep breath that travels all the way to her belly. She does not reply immediately, not as a strategy, but because she is in the middle of her life. She is finishing a report, or watering her plants, or talking to her mother. Her world no longer stops because his has decided to intersect with it. When she does decide to reply, hours later, or even the next day, her fingers do not tremble with anxiety. She feels a calm, centered curiosity. She looks at the message not as a lifeline, but as a piece of data, and she asks herself a new set of questions. Not, does he want me back? But, do I want him back? Does this person, with his demonstrated capacity for avoidance and poor communication, have a place in the peaceful, whole life I have built for myself? Has he done the work to meet me where I am now? Or is he simply bored and lonely, knocking on a door he assumes is still open? Her reply, if she chooses to send one, will be authentic. It will be warm, perhaps, but it will be grounded. It might be a simple, "I'm doing really well, thanks. Hope you are too." It is not an invitation. It is not a rejection. It is a statement of fact. It is a response from a sovereign nation, not a desperate, waiting colony. It communicates, without saying it, my well-being is not and was never dependent on your presence or absence. The power has shifted, not because you have made him wait, but because his return is no longer the prize. The prize is the peace you found in his absence, and you will not trade that peace for anything less than a connection that honors it, respects it, and adds to it. You have learned that the cost of readmitting chaos into your life is far too high. This is the ultimate freedom. Not freedom from him, but freedom from the part of yourself that was willing to shrink, to wait, to abandon herself for the possibility of love. His silence was a terrible and holy thing. It was a crucible that burned away your illusions. It forced you to face the unhealed wounds, the disowned parts of your shadow, and the terrifying, beautiful depth of your own soul. It was the antagonist in your story that forced you to become the hero. And what you find, on the other side of it all, is not a heart that is hardened or cynical. It is a heart made wise, a heart that has learned the vital difference between attachment and connection, a heart that can love deeply, but will no longer betray itself to do so. The journey he initiated with his distance does not end with his return. It ends with your arrival at the center of your own life. You are no longer listening for his footsteps in the hall. You are listening to the rhythm of your own breath, the beating of your own resilient heart, and the quiet, powerful music of a life that is finally, wholly, and unapologetically yours.